Ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome back, everybody.
Good to see you, Sam.
Hey, good to see you too. You ready for Get Round 1?
Yeah, I missed you during that break.
Me too. We went so far, and now we have returned.
Yeah. So, shall we get right into it? We've got 2 players that have filled out player profiles for us. So let's get to know them a little bit before we watch them murder each other, shall we?
Yes.
First up is Jonah Overholt, who is one of my compatriots on the AGE Pro team. One of the sweetest human beings you will ever meet in your entire life. He gave me the biggest hug I've ever had in my whole life this morning, save for the one that you gave me, Sam. Not to make you jealous or anything. But I want to draw attention to his guilty pleasure, which is Gossip Girl and Milk Duds. I'm sure he has them together because that's the only way to serve up Gossip Girl and Milk Duds.
I just think I have to call attention to that. Jonah would like to come back from Latin America fluid and thick with 3 C's.
I believe that's fluent.
What did I say?
Fluid.
Fluid? Well, you know, after 3 days in Latin America, you never know. You get careful with the water. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our next player profile here. This is going to be, if I am not mistaken, the man himself. It's gonna be, wait for it, it's almost there, wait for it, you're gonna see it. No, it's Zayne Johnson. This is a man, I feel like he almost thinks in haiku. You know, he's just such, he's a refined individual. You have to be careful when you speak to him, because you might just get, you know, lulled into a sense of security because of how kind he is, but then he is just an absolute killer.
Yeah, right before he shoves a dominated arrow down your throat. I love Zayne Johnson, not because he is on my team or because he's one of my coworkers in this game, but because we share a hero and class affinity in common. He's another really intense Azalea player. I just had a conversation with him, though. He's not going to be showing us any Azalea play today. He says Azalea is feeling a little cope at the moment, which I'm kind of vibing on. It's a sad day, but he's gonna show us how versatile he is at this game. But let's see, what were some of his answers here? He wants being live for top 8 is the most important quality. Apparently a results-driven gentleman himself.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know, he's very kind, but at the end of the day, what is he here to do? He's here to freaking win.
He's
going to tell you that. What's the most important quality card players should have? Being live for top 8. That's about as important as it gets.
Yeah.
And this is going to be the first step on both of these players' journey to be live for the top 8 here in San Diego. So let's go ahead and jump down to the game board as we prepare.
You're like, what if I just had one action?
Yeah.
It beats me.
Totally. I think, like, you start playing Brute, you're like, oh, scabs are cool. And then you lose some games to scabs, and you're like, ah, man.
They're not cool. Those are blocking.
Yeah. That's 3 life. Yes, totally.
Okay, you're getting started. Haven't seen, you know, we're not starting off.
Good luck. Good luck.
Rocking with the mainstays. The timer is live. The players have shuffled. They've got their hands. Let's go
discard.
Begin.
Sure.
Make some tokens.
Yep.
Kiwi Stalker and everybody else in chat, thank you so much.
Yeah, pass is good.
How loud the player logs are. We are on that. Take care of it. And
2 to 1.
Players are drawing up. Jonah is saying, "Great 2 tokens." That's not a bad opening for any KO player. Means
We'll see.
Got no reactions. I'm just going to also keep it here so we don't have a sweet scandal on our hands.
He can be taxed by that
yeah, I love the fact that Scale Killer has been included in more of these assassin decks now. And it makes so much sense against Zen, right? Because anytime you're sending an attack at Zen, you run the risk of whether or not you're presenting disruption or not. He basically has 7 points in armor to just throw in front of it. Scale Killer makes it so that you can't get that amount of value, and you can turn off a turn through his fridge. Kayo is obviously not on that game plan per se, but he has an insane amount of value in his armor, and so presenting a Scale Peeler at the top of every turn, not a bad way to go.
Zayne here, just going to go ahead and put some pressure on. The Enlightened Strike for 7. The Agile windup as the block there for Jonah, and of course, a really powerful card can do so much for you. Is kind of quote-unquote a 6, but you'd like to discard it to get the agility, but here just going to be used for those 2 points of block value, not exactly the best way you want to use it. Here we have a weakest link coming in for the KO player here, of course, for 7 with the might and go again with the agility. So 7 with go again, a little better than 7 without, as we saw that E-strike earlier in that last turn. And again, against these missed fail heroes, this on-hit of the weakest link, such a powerful effect, part of why these cards are rather expensive, but the Fate Foreseen is going to go ahead and cover that up along with the Hiss.
Yeah, Fab players love to say 7, don't they, Sam? We've talked about this a lot on the AGE streams. But also, Jonah really loves to hunt for any of those pesky chi cards in his opponent's hand. But let's see what Jonah's got here. We're throwing in a Cast Bones, which we haven't seen in these KO decks for some time. It's become a little bit more popular after that that KO top 8 at Calling Manila and was sporting 3 copies of this card.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, there's a reason why everybody wanted it banned in those first 2 weeks of the heavy hitter meta. When you see it resolved against you and you suddenly get C for 12 with go again on the next turn, it can be so backbreaking here. But of course, because the one cast bone was revealed along with those other 5/6 power attacks, only going to make the 5 might. So Jonah Overholt on the next turn, going to get a lot of power from those might tokens, but we'll have to find another way to gain action points on the turn. Something like a Wild Rider or Pulping might go a long way. Though, as we saw, Zayne Johnson did have the Fate Foreseen in Arsenal, would have stuffed it on the last turn.
Jonah did have an opportunity, as we saw revealed off that Cast Bones, to draw an all red hand. Luckily, he has not. He's found one of those blues. Unfortunately, though, he is holding on to another Cast Bones, which can be very awkward for KOs, especially because of all these extra draw discard effects. He has the opportunity to block with it, though, to kind of get it out of his hand and make sure that he can play all of these cards.
Let's see exactly what is going to follow up this Leave No Witnesses here, because you have to imagine with 2 cards in hand, Zayne's going to want to use one of them.
Perhaps one of those pesky attack reactions. I think if it was one of the new ones from Misfail, we would have seen a blue pitched first so that he makes sure he creates a Fang Strike or a Slither on the back end of it, but there's no telling what could be there.
This is just going to be a block for 5 or 4 using the beaten track. I expected it to be Scabskin Leathers, but no, Jonah Overholt looking for a little leaner, a little more aggression in those beaten trackers, but it is just going to go ahead and be the arsenal there for Zayne. So maybe a red that we couldn't use to pitch into the dagger, maybe just some cards that didn't quite, factor into the turn. So Zayne's only going to be able to draw 3 cards here, and Jonah with 5 might tokens, not under enough pressure, sniffed out that turn, I would say, beautifully.
The mantra of the KO players on the AGE Pro team has become Scabskins is a bad card. It's a hot take, but there's a solid reason for it, and their reasoning is that there's typically only, especially in these KO decks, there's typically only like one moment every game where you really need an extra action point. And why introduce variants on Scabskins when really it's only one action point that you need? You don't got to roll the 6. You got to roll the 4 or 5. But let's just eliminate the whole possibility of us turning off the turn and just do it on demand whenever we want. So do it off the back of like a Savage Feast when you know you're going to be drawing a card, something to that effect. But right now, here comes Swing Big for a big, bad 13.
Big bad 13 just off of 3 cards thanks to the might tokens, and I believe we're going to be hanging out with another Cast Bones in the arsenal for Jonah for a following turn. But this is going to take 3 cards in front and a Sink Below, which is going to go ahead and create a Quicken thanks to the full block for Zayne. He's going to be left with 1 card in the hand after this. So that Sink Below is one of the cards that Zayne kept on the last turn, something he definitely was prioritizing getting in the arsenal. It looks like he's just going to go ahead and arsenal on his next turn as well, giving Jonah full tempo, but with no agility, it's going to be on him once again to find the go again.
And luckily he has. I believe we've seen a Wild Ride. Yes, we have. We've seen a Wild Ride in the hand, and this is the moment you really dream of for Cast Bones. Cast Bones can be such a liability, either being in your deck or in your hand on these KO turns. Luckily, Jonah has very smartly placed it in his arsenal. He's going to be able to do go again attack, and then go ahead and slam a Cast Bones on top of it. Critically, creating a might token beforehand, almost guaranteeing the fact that he will also be able to create an agility token off the back of that Cast Bones. For now, it's just Wild Ride for 6.
Wild Ride 4-6 here, but of course Zayne still had a fully healthy 40, so has managed the aggression so far. Jonah on this KO deck going to go ahead and also manage his own threat density as well. You don't want to lose all the threats as you're constantly discarding certain cards, losing cards to the top of your deck to the new here. So going to be interesting to see if Zayne is looking to take this game a little longer, maybe allow Jonah to run out of some cards, but right as I make that observation, the first 3 damage coming across the Wild Ride, only going to be taking a Venomous Bite to the block. We're going to go ahead and pitch a red in that Bare Fangs to talk about keep some threat density, keep a big, powerful red Bare Fangs to the bottom of the deck. It's Mandible Claw coming in. Looks like that's getting taken as well.
This is the second time we've seen Zayne block with those Mystic attack reactions. It may telegraph what's in his hand. Perhaps he's just not finding those Bonds of Agonies, your Persuasive Prognosis, etc., which are the attacks that really make those cards shine. In this case, Jonah is finding a big bad 6 Might tokens, so he didn't even need to create that initial Might token to get full value off of his cast bones. He's also showing that he's got a Beast Within and a couple other blues, so we could see a monstrous turn coming from Jonah next.
A Beast Within trigger on whatever happens next after this cast bones could just really blow everything out of the water here. Zayne did kind of looks to be keeping somewhat of an aggressive hand because he took some damage finally, so we're going to have to see if he's able to put enough pressure because 7 Might tokens and an agility. It's face up for Mr. Overholt. There is a powerful turn coming. The onus here is on New to go ahead and find some disruption here. This is going to be an E-Strike, most likely draw a card thanks to the go again. So if there were no disruptive pieces, maybe Zayne was looking for another one.
Zayne is using that Quicken token, which was created off the back of Jonah's Swing Big, which Zayne blocked fully very well. I mean, I can't think of a better use case than E-Strike draw a card, especially when you really need to find some disruptive pieces to stop whatever is coming your way. Because we know Jonah is sitting with 2 threatening pieces, 2 threatening attacks in Send Packing, and then he's also got a red Bare Fangs sitting in his arsenal. So whatever he does with this turn, it's going to be pretty intense. And Jonah may just want to throw one of those Send Packings plus a piece of armor in front of this.
Yeah, once again, Zayne coming in with a powerful disruptive attack and 2 cards available to him. Last time there were 2 cards in the hand. This one in the hand, 1 in the arsenal. So that arsenal card saved from any potential intimidation of the Scowling Fleshback. I think we know. We just took a peek. I think that's a Sink Below.
It is.
Yeah, so
it is.
It would have to be a disruptive piece hanging out in the arsenal from maybe just that turn that was the 3-card block plus the Sink Below, and then that final card in hand that's been hanging in the arsenal for a little bit. Looks like there is the Beast Within in the hand for Jonah Overholt here. So, but that might just be being committed to defense.
Now, Sam, this is a bit of a skill check for Jonah because Zayne is sitting on a full tunic, which he can cash in for the Arousing Wave if Jonah blocks this exactly. However, based on the condition of his fridge and the fact that he has put 1 card down already, it doesn't seem like it's going to be a perfect block. Whoa, Jonah goes for the overblock. He's going to IP penalty his opponent Zayne unless Zayne can clear that arsenal, which maybe he just won't do. Did he draw that Sink Below off of the E-Strike? I think that was just a bit of unluck.
We don't know if it was the E-Strike or the Leave No Witnesses that was drawn. One of those 2 cards was drawn off of the E-Strike, but we didn't see which of those cards here at home was the one drawn. But because Zayne cannot use that arsenal to the fullest extent on this turn, that means that Sink Below is just going to hang out in the hand. Couldn't do anything on the turn at all. No Arousing Wave because of the overblock. So Jonah, once again, he's got experience in the matchup. He had an incredible finish, I believe, at U.S. Nationals, right?
Sure
He
did.
was top 16 at U.S. Nationals. So this is a man that knows the Brute class, knows this deck, and is trying to put the pressure on. Here's a Weakest Link coming in with 8 Might tokens and the agility giving it go again. 14 go again and a very relevant on-hit effect into this Mistvalian hero.
Now, we have not seen any chi cards by Zayne, except for I believe he pitched one turn 1. So the chances are high that he's finally found one. Doesn't look like it. Taking a look at his hand, we've got a Sink Below. Was that a Command and Conquer? I believe it was some disruptive red 6. Got a little bit of glare on those cards, so can't tell completely. But it really does not look like we've found any of those chi cards yet. Siren's Call, and then perhaps an Assassin Attack. But bottom line, we're still threatening 14 damage, and that is quite an on-hit as it is.
Straight to reactions goes Mr. Johnson. The sink below going to go ahead and take care of 4 of that, but that means 10 damage coming across, a decade's worth of news life going from 34 to 24 here. About 20 minutes elapsed in the round, and we can see the rest of the hand. He's laid it all out for us. We got an Oasis Respite and a Tunic on 3. We've got a Siren's Call and a Command and Conquer. So those are all nice defensive pieces, can block for a total of 10 on the rest of this turn. It's going to be the Send Packing to go ahead and clear that arsenal. Let's find out for us all. It's a Surgical Extraction. No way to use that on any of these last couple turns. And if this Send Packing is not just fully blocked, that Send Packing stays in the Banish Zone, but then if it's fully blocked, you have a Send Packing in your hand and an Oasis Respite, and again, your turn's not really doing anything there anyway.
Jonah's sequencing here was really curious. We're definitely seeing that he was kind of smelling the blood in the water in terms of Zayne drawing some Chi cards.
Gravekeeper. I thought it was the alt art Oasis.
Yeah, it's they do look similar, don't they?
Yeah,
Especially
I thought it was
in
the
foil.
alt art Oasis, yeah.
Yeah, no, it is a Gravekeeping in Zayne's hand, which is a really interesting inclusion. Normally, that's a card that functions really well in new, but we only usually see it in the limited format.
Yeah.
Zayne's saying, I really want to be able to pick some of these juicy blues out of your graveyard and send them back your way. I think if your KO opponent is being really astute and not blocking with blue cards, you can kind of find yourself in a situation where you don't have anything to do with your Chi as like a pop-off turn or any inevitability. So maybe that's Zayne's purpose for running this card.
And now if you look here, all of a sudden, Zayne just took a whole smack to the face, and I was about to say, this Gravekeeping threatens to put these players at parity when all is said and done. Zayne's done a lot of blocking. He's done it doesn't feel like an enormous amount of attacking. It's been a lot of like E-strikes. E-strike for 7, only blocked for 2. E-strike for 5. I think most or all of that was taken, right? So Zayne here as the assassin still finding the threat density, still, looking for a scraps have been played. That is often used in these new matchups, but still going ahead and finding so much damage. It's going to be a wild ride here for Jonah, and that's going to discard the weakest link, making a Might Token, 2 cards left.
Zayne has done an incredible job at keeping life parity here, especially through 2 cast bones, one of which was not quite max value, but 5 Might Tokens is good enough. Zayne is doing an incredible job, especially considering the amount of defense reactions that are run in these new lists. He's been finding them really early and at the moments that he really needs them. And again, as you were mentioning, Sam, E-Strike's such an efficient card when it comes down to cleaning up some of these clunky assassin hands that can kind of happen here and there. Wild Ride coming in for 5. We might see our first equipment block here from Zayne, perhaps telegraphing that he's going to go a little wide on this next turn.
Yeah, it's always fun as the new player. You sometimes can throw down one of the 2 battle-worn pieces, making your opponent think that you're really planning, of course, to utilize it on the next turn, or else why would you block on this random attack that doesn't have an on-hit, and then you save it, or you use a different attack reaction. It's one of the many interesting and fun aspects of the assassin class, and here it's just going to be a run roughshod to close the chain following the Mandible Claw. So this one's just going to be coming in, I think, for 6 because of the +1, thanks to the discard of the 6 earlier in the turn.
I believe this will still just be for 5. Am I mistaken about that?
Run roughshod. It has text on it. What is the text?
The text just says you can only play this if you discarded a 5 or
I've never actually
6
seen
or
it
more.
played. I've only seen it discarded.
And it's kind of a dream to be able to get off because it is such an efficient card at blue, block 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, the stars do kind of have to align, but Jonah is the guy to make that happen. He just has played this class since its inception. I believe he's been playing since vanilla, and he's been playing Rhinar, and he's the guy to put these really complicated brute lines together.
Zayne now, after getting the life parity back together, it is now 16 to 24 in favor of the Brute. This is going to be a scale peeler coming in. Surgical Extraction getting pitched away here, so this is threatening mostly the Savage Sash, as those other 2 pieces. One can't block anymore, and the other one only blocks for 1. And now it's time for the Bonds of Agony. This is the card that really makes these new decks, and the Azuri decks. All the Assassins can use this card, and man, does it put in work. Now we see a little bit more why perhaps we utilized the Undertow Stilettos. We utilized the Arousing Wave. 2 attack reactions per equipment piece down there, and then you need to just find 1 more to turn on that incredibly threatening effect, just ripping through the hand, the deck, and the graveyard.
And Jonah's found himself with a hand of no blocks, essentially.
LMAO.
This is going to be a little difficult on Jonah's part to block out, So he's probably just going to say, show me what you got. And this can be okay as long as Jonah doesn't have any of those critical power cards in his hand. Like, he would not be doing this if he's sitting on a Blood Rush, of course, then, because Zayne would eliminate Blood Rushes from his entire deck. So Jonah's probably just saying, you know what, you're not going to ruin my hand too much, so I'm just going to let you rip what you can out of my deck and come back at you swinging.
And look at this. In the reaction step, this attack goes from an attack for 1 to an attack for 10. You've seen it before. You'll see it again. This quote-unquote sequence combo, it's not going anywhere, but the Just a Nick is the perfect follow-up here for Zayne to couple with the Arousing Wave, turning that to an extra banish, extra damage, and of course threatening to just rip through the hand. We're still going to go ahead and utilize the reckless Swing here if we are the KO player, which is going to go ahead and block 4, and of course discard a card. If it's a 6, 2 damage coming across. It is a 6, so 2 damage to Zayne, going down to 14, but 6 going to come over the top after that Reckless Swing.
Which is kind of lucky. I think I might have seen 2 pulpings in Jonah's hand, which if Zayne saw that on the on hit, if Jonah didn't discard 1 essentially, that could mean that Zayne could rip 2 of those pulpings out of his hand. That was not the case. It's 2 Wild Rides. So I believe Zayne does have the opportunity to just take both of these out of Jonah's hand
100%.
and make it so he can't do anything.
Pick Wild Ride, and then you get to choose basically 3 total cards from all the zones. He's
Doesn't matter what color.
Yeah, he's going to go ahead and choose the 2 Wild Rides that are in the hand. He's going to go ahead and find another. If there's a red one left, going to go ahead and grab that out of the deck, and that means poor Jonah Overholt here, after taking that 6 damage, is going to say the words, pass turn.
Yeah, and Jonah, even though this is really painful for him to watch, I think this was the correct play because it's not like he could have blocked this out. There was no hope. Even if, I guess he could have hoped just that the attack reactions were going to get Bonds of Agony to 4, but I think he's identifying, like, there's nothing I can do here. I'm just going to eat this. I'm going to save as much life as possible and draw up and hope next time.
And now, again, the onus is on our assassin player here to find some either pressure or disruption to keep up the tempo that he has so rightfully won and wrested from the brute player here. We're going to go ahead and have Jonah drawing up. 17-14 is the life total. Zayne Johnson versus Jonah Overholt. It's the first round of the Battle Hardened here in San Diego. 2 of this region's absolute best players. And let's see who is going to win the head-to-head matchup. We're going to get a Bonds of Attraction, I believe, pitched away into the Scale Peeler once again.
Here comes Scale Peeler saying, I dare you to block with your sash. And at some point, Jonah is just going to want to so that he can activate its ability and really gain some extra resource value off of it. But for now, he is just left to guess at what is left in Zayne's hand. And we know it's a Persuasive Prognosis. I believe it's a... Is that a... Oh, that's a Marvel Codex of Frailty.
Yeah.
And another Gravekeeping, if I'm not mistaken.
So those are 3 Oasis Respites that I see in the hand there. Just 3. Those are 3 away, right? We're just all on the same page, right? Everybody's on the same page. 3 Oasis Respites in that hand. So, man, tough for Zayne here. Just going ahead. No pressure found at all.
It's amazing that Jonah is running, has 4 Oasis Respites in his hand as well. That should be a DQ. I don't know what's going on there, but... We have eyes only for Oasis Respite, don't we, Sam?
And just as you call it out, Mr. Platts, the Savage Sash is just going to go ahead and buy the block, saying, all right, you've won the block out of me. I will like to utilize this on some turn in the future. And now it's time for the Mistblade to get into the action. The Persuasive Prognosis pitched away.
And that could be... It's really scary to see this, basically, right? Because you're like, oh my gosh, did I just block the wrong dagger? Like, what am I doing? But we know the context of Zayne's hand is not really going to benefit from the connection here.
Unless it's the surgical.
Unless it's the blue in here.
It is
there is a surgical. Oh my goodness.
The Arsenal. This is coming out for 5. You can see Jonah just taking a bit of a grimace there as the surgical is going to go ahead and now have go again and threaten to rip a card out of the hand.
Now, Zayne's follow-up here is likely just going to be Codex into Leave No Witnesses. He doesn't have the Tunic counter. I don't believe he even has a Death Touch in the graveyard. It would be fetching another Gravekeeping if he went for the 1 cost anyway. So he is fairly face-up here. There's not a whole lot else he could grab for a 0 cost. He could also pitch the Codex for the Gravekeeping. I don't think that's going to be the play line. I think you want to generate the tokens and kind of keep your lead rolling.
Yeah, you don't like to discard cards, but maybe Gravekeeping is not the card at the top of the list. Looks like that is just going to be a full block. We're going to go ahead and move into the next part of the turn. It's going to be a Codex of Frailty, which means, of course, now, Jonah, hooray, you get to grab a card from your graveyard, but another card's going to get discarded and immediately threatened by the Leave No Witnesses here.
And Zayne is identifying the point at which he's just going to completely disrupt Jonah here, because Jonah's going to lose one of those 2 cards out of his hand, which means he's going to be able to block a maximum of 4, but that's if he gives up his Savage Sash, which he is probably not want to do, because he really is going to need it to close out this game for sure. So Zayne is going to probably send this Leave No Witnesses for 4 and basically just get that Arsenal card that Jonah just took from the Codex of Frailty.
Yeah, you're right, because if Jonah wants to use the Bonebreaker here, that might...
I'm sorry, we have Bonebreaker, yeah.
But the Might Token will get no value, so maybe
Yeah.
he... What value loss do you like here? Do you like to lose the value on the Might Token? Do you want to keep your Savage Sass around for later? You have to imagine the Savage Sass might go ahead and get you just another spike turn you need if Zayne stumbles on the disruption, because at this point, it's been all new all the time. Zayne took so much damage, faced down those 2 massive Cast Bones turns, and has now put himself in the position to get into the driver's seat and close this game out. The question is, when you play new, you can have good turn after good turn, and then you draw Hiss, Venomous Bite, Just a Nick, Weakest Link, and you're like, now what?
Don't forget about the Sink Below that's in your arsenal.
Exactly. So you have to figure out here, sometimes it comes down to the top of the deck. Part of what we love about TCGs is that variance, and what is Zayne going to be able to string together here?
We sure have found a lot of cheese finally, and 2 blue cards to boot on top of it. One of the best chi cards is in Zayne's hand, and that is Path Well Traveled. So he's going to be able to give one of these blue attacks go again, regardless of whether he sends that dagger first. Now, Jonah still is yet to draw any of that precious little card called Bloodrush Bellows.
I know.
He's definitely running 3 in the deck, so he's doing the correct thing in terms of just treading water until he can get his hands on those, because with Zayne at 14, one of those really nasty Bloodrush, plus maybe mix in a Sash, can spell lethal. Right now, though, another Bonds of Agony.
Yeah, you talk about good disruption turns. How about another Bonds of Agony for the troubles there? And of course, so much cheek in the hand. We might see a new activation. We might utilize that Smash Instinct that we banished with the Gravekeeping. We might utilize the Mask of Recurring Nightmares.
I think he's going to have to, in order to if Zayne wants to turn on this Bonds of Agony, he's going to have to use both of those cheat cards in his hand, transcend, activate the Undertow Stilettos, activate the Mask, and actually also play the Slither in order to get, unless he's got an attack reaction in his arsenal, which I don't think he does.
I'm not sure what the arsenal is, but if you give it go again, you do have that Persuasive Prognosis. Looks as though Zayne is going to go ahead and just draw a discard, flip the chi around. Persuasive Prognosis could be a fine follow-up as well for Zayne if he wants to just give go again, rip the hand apart utilizing the Mask of Recurring Nightmares. We're going to see what the play is here. It's going to be the Chi first. We're going to go ahead and pitch into the Stiletto. So yes, it looks as though that is going to be the line here. We're going to, while we still have Bonds of Agony in the deck and while the game is still going on, utilize every attack reaction we can. And then there is
just a Nick. And that was found off of the Ponder token on his Codex.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Which actually can be a bit of a liability.
Yeah, 100%.
A lot of these really good new players do say often, like, you have to be so careful about arsenaling attack reactions just because your deck is so rock, paper, scissors as to whether they'll even work with the cards in your hand. Zayne very luckily finding the Just Nick with 2 of those blue 1-cost attacks in his hand.
Just Nick here going to push so much damage over. How about a Bear Fangs off the top as well? Look at the hand. We're going to see, get to pick a card and just rip through the deck in the hand once again.
There's looks like 2 CNCs in the graveyard, so Zayne probably wanting to get rid of that CNC, but with a Send Packing in the hand and not getting much value out of the deck banishes, maybe that's not the play. He also eyes a Juicy Blue, which if he takes one of those out of the hand, he's not really going to do anything to hamper Jonah's turn. However, he is going to power up his turn when he finally decides to activate that new hero ability.
Yeah, because the hero ability here will take another card. Of course, Jonah doesn't know that. He might be thinking, well, at least I can, make 2 might tokens. At least I can go ahead and swing the CNC, but Zayne is going to have something to say about that. The other thing about grabbing the assault and battery here, it was the only way for Jonah to create an agility token in that hand. Otherwise, it is not that exciting nor impressive. It can do a little bit of damage, can do a little bit of disruption, but the agility tokens are how the KO deck can really just bust this whole thing wide open. And Zayne here saying, listen, if I somehow leave you with enough cards, I don't want you making an agility token and me potentially falling out of the driver's seat here in the game.
And Jonah getting another shuffle here, so hopefully moving those Blood Rush Bellows a little bit further to the top of the deck. Perhaps Zayne was able to get a lot of them to the bottom on that last Bonds of Agony hit. But here comes Persuasive Prognosis, another terrifying card, especially when you've lost all of your equipment that can block for 1. Sometimes you can kind of call these new players' bluffs and go, okay, cool, here's, like, I know you don't have any attack reactions left. Here's a 1-block piece of equipment. And then Persuasive Prognosis is not nearly the threatening card that it can be.
Let's see how Jonah wants to deal with this. Zayne knows all the cards in the hand. He also knows the card in the arsenal because it was put there with the Codex of Frailty. I think it's a Wild Ride. So Zayne is aware what the arsenal card is. If he leaves Jonah with enough pitch in the hand, that card can come out of the arsenal. It's going to be the Path Well Traveled to give the go again. Now, here's the question for Zayne. Do you utilize that mask, or do you utilize the new ability to attack with either the Assault and Battery or the Smash Instinct? Another reason to grab the blue there out of the hand. You fill up the Banish Zone for later.
So Zayne has already seen the context of Jonah's hand. He knows that if he makes Jonah banish one of those cards, his turn is going to probably look more or less the same. Interesting. He does go for the mask activation, though.
I think that's just the persuasive trigger. So that's the card off the top, and then the persuasive trigger. So gaining 2 life there because of the yellow pitch. We saw the Beast Within, so we can grab the Send Packing. And now it is going to be the new ability. We're going to look at the top. Looks like no banish here. And then first, the dagger, which is, now this is so threatening for Jonah. He can't let this dagger hit. Thankfully, he does have the 1 block left of the Savage Sass, but if this dagger hits, now Zayne is able to go blue into blue, and that's just going to close the game out.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jonah's going to block with 1 card here, and then when I guess Zayne still just sends the Smash Instinct and gets Jonah down to 1.
Yeah. Last card in hand after this, we'll see what the block is, but if he isn't able to keep enough pitch, he's just going to be intimidated and maybe die. If you have the Savage Sash and you keep... Oh, no, I think the Command & Conquer was already... Oh, of course, the Command & Conquer costs 2 anyway. I was like, it'll cost 1, and then you can play it. But you have no other cards in the hand.
Which,
so
you could pop the Sash in order to make that happen.
But needed at least 1 pitch, and that is just going to take the Savage Sash here and block out the attack.
Yeah, Jonah being smart about this. So it's going to depend on... Oh, you said it's a Wild Ride in Jonah's arsenal, right?
I believe he grabbed the Wild Ride off the Codex. That's what I remember, but we'll have to wait and see.
So Jonah's really hoping that the CNC... I'm sorry, the blue is the one that's hit here, so we can block with the CNC. Unfortunate. He keeps the Mighty Wind-Up, which means that he's just going to have to take the 5 in order to have anything happen on this turn.
Take 5, go to 1. Now all of a sudden, every dagger closes the game out. Any tickle from any attack reaction will be the difference. So Jonah here, he had all the juice, all the gas to start this game. But that's these assassin decks, man. They take a moment, they stabilize, and then if they can continue the pressure and continue the disruption, they don't really ever look back in the rearview mirror.
Well, and props to Zayne for keeping his life total so high through a lot of pressure. I mean, Jonah has not found a single Blood Rush here, but he did find 2 Cast Bones, got almost max value on both of them. And, Zayne has just been able to completely take apart the rest of the turns right about at the mid-game point.
No arsenal, I think, even here for Zayne. So to utilize the cards, Jonah here just had to send the CNC for 6. No threatening on hit because Zayne didn't keep an arsenal. So that's most likely going to spell the conclusion of the game if Zayne is able to just go wide enough. If Jonah doesn't draw a hand that blocks, it looks as though that's a bunch of 3 blocks there for Jonah. So maybe this game will continue a little while longer.
Save for the pulping. So Jonah only has 9 block value in his hand. We've already seen 1 Reckless Swing played. The likelihood of him having another one is pretty low. But we know the context of his arsenal anyway, so it's a little irrelevant. Yeah.
Jonah there just went ahead and extended the fist bump already, just had to assume the attack reaction was coming, and the answer was yes. The leave no witnesses, and I believe the venomous bite is going to close the game. Zayne Johnson on new Alluring Desire going to move on to 1-0 here at the Battle Hardened in San Diego, brought to you by the Arcane Games Events Open Series, and of course, our friends at fabrec.gg. Jonah Overholt going to move into the losers bracket for now, but as we've seen with this fantastic player, that is not where he likes to hang out for long, so we might be seeing him later in the day. But a classic game of flesh and blood to start off a classic weekend of great games.
Indeed so. We saw a lot of good play there. Congratulations to Zayne Johnson, our round 1 victor. We're going to get Zayne over here for an interview. Chat to Zayne about his clenching of the victory over the one-armed brute.
Just absolutely clenching from the jaws to defeat 2 cast
Clenching
bones.
it with 2 hands, something that Kayo can't do.
Oh, I got it, and that's how we'll start the interview. Just like, how
Got him.
does it feel to have 2 hands, huh? And you can use 2 daggers.
That's right.
What's up with it? Those 2 cast bones, powerful, but that was kind of the last we saw of that KO deck do anything beyond pretty rote, normal flesh and blood, right?
Yeah.
And in today's meta, in today's game, you have to do something extraordinary. You have to do something beyond the normalcy, right? That can really push past the incredibly disruptive effects that we see from a deck like New, the crazy damage ceilings that we can see from a deck like Zen. So kind of on both players there to find the power turns, find the disruption, and it just, at the end of the day, sputtered out a little bit for the KO, and the New was able to keep it alive. So we'll take a quick second.
Let's do it.
Get Zayne in here, and then we will continue our day, so don't go anywhere. It is time for more Battle Hardened in just a little bit.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. As promised, we have our round 1 winner, Zayne Johnson, here with me to talk about his illustrious victory over Jonah Overholt, my teammate. So I got a bit of a bone to pick with you.
Well, Jonah got me last time. We played round 1 at a recent AGE, and he Reinhardted my Prism, so I got him back.
Yeah, and that's super dirty.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that game, Zayne.
Yes.
For one, you are sporting a bit of spice in that new deck. I don't think I've seen a whole lot of gravekeeping, and boy, did it do work.
It really did. Yeah, Gravekeeping's very good. I mean, it's a 1 for 5 on its face, so like it's on rate. You're not sacrificing rate, and news text is relevant. Like playing their blues is really strong. They try to avoid blocking the stealth with blue, so I'll take the blue I want anyway.
Important to note that Smash Instinct that you were able to play from Jonah's Banish Zone, which all but clenched the game, came from the Banish off of that Gravekeeping really early.
Yeah, I mean, that's the last blue he wants to see me cast, and there's one in the grave, and I'll take it.
Absolutely. How worried were you when you saw 2 cast bones get resolved in the first 3 turns of the game?
I was looking at my hand real careful, like, please don't be no blocks. And thankfully my hands were very, block heavy up front, and I could just kind of block out the cast bones and wait it out a bit. But I was sweating a bit. I was glad to see 5 on the first one.
Yeah, and you luckily were able to see 3 of those really good 0 for 4 defense reactions early as well.
Yeah, I saw the D-reacts when he was applying pressure, and then I saw all gas once I took tempo. My deck was very kind to me this game.
Yeah, and resolving 2 Bonds of Agonies with full resolution, huh?
With Justin X on him, you always feel a little bad. I'm not an assassin player by trade necessarily, as you can see. I'm an Azalea guy. So hitting people with Just the Nick on Bonds of Agony, I feel a little bit bad for them. But
since you mentioned it, and since I love to talk about Azalea, why no Azalea this tournament?
Well, when people think about Azalea, they're like, oh yeah, she beats aggro, right? Ninja, oh it must be so bad to play against Azalea as Ninja. That's not my experience. I'm losing to Zen more than I'm beating Zen. I'm struggling with Assassin. It's just, what am I doing bringing Azalea if it doesn't beat the best deck and the deck that it theoretically targets, which is Ninja? I mean, you can beat Zen, of course, with Azalea, but it's not. I tried really hard.
I feel you. I'm continuing to try. I haven't given up yet, but I'm close.
I mean, if you asked me 2 days ago at this time when I was playing, I would have told you Azalea, and then I learned. I wisened up.
So, have you had a lot of reps on this new deck, or are you coming in a little bit fresh?
It's definitely pretty new to me. I've played a good amount of Azuri. I like any of the heroes that can play Codex. I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
So I played a lot of.
They kind of go hand in hand, don't they? The Assassins and the Rangers.
Move them back and forth.
Yep, exactly.
But yeah, so I've played a lot of Azuri, which they're obviously different. But I've probably played 10 games of new in paper. I played some more in testing, but not a ton. It's not a deck that I know the back of my hand. like Azalea.
Well, you certainly made it sing in that last match.
It was kind to me. I appreciate it on round 1 of the day.
Yeah, because, I mean, we always talk about clunky hands as like Runeblade hands, like the wrong mixture of attacks and non-attacks. But I found that the new decks are almost playing rock, paper, scissors with themselves because it's like all of your attack reactions need either Assassin or Mystic, or they're Justin X. They need the 1 cost.
Or a blue.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, I don't know. It feels almost more possible to clunk up the hands in the Assassin decks, I think, than even Runeblade or Ranger.
You totally can. I mean, like, his Cast Bones turns, I drew, like, my Venomous Bites and Hisses with no blues, and I thankfully could convert my hand for block value. But I was, like, drawing Venomous Bite, no blue, and I'm like, okay. I mean, thankfully I can block. Like, he's presenting enough damage to just get value here.
Yeah.
But, yeah, totally. It does feel similar to, like, the Mauve Shrill Viscerai a little bit, where it's like, I need the blue, I need the thing, and I need the other thing. As new, but you block pretty well, and you have a lot of ways to hide how powerful your turn is, unlike Ranger and Runeblade, where the power of your turn is shown right there.
Yeah.
You can have a bad hand and your opponent doesn't know that, and you can hold 2 cards in bonds with nothing, right? And that's a key difference, where even if the hand is bad, your opponent doesn't have to know that.
Yeah, and I honestly thought you were doing one of those quintessential assassin bluffs in the mid game when you threw that blossoming Mistblade, and it was like, well, we know the context of Zayne's hand, so he's not going to like take advantage of it. He's just kind of like showing Jonah and scaring him, and then here comes a surgical from Arsenal. Like, talk about your deck being good to you.
Yeah, he knew about the surgical too, so maybe he had forgotten because he sent packinged it.
Righto.
Yeah, so it was like a little bit face up, but also like blocking Mistblade's so rough, right? Like,
it is.
Like, if he's going to give me a card, it nets out to kind of the same thing. I still had Stilettos up, so I could have, and I discarded the Gravekeeping to the Codex, so I could have pitched the Gravekeeping to Stiletto the Surgical anyway. So I think it was probably correct to not block there, but it feels terrible getting Surgicaled with Go again.
And so we talked about your deck being super kind to you.
Yes.
Let's talk about Jonah's deck being a little bit unkind to him.
Yes.
The first thing you said to me when you walked up to me for the interview was, 0 Blood Rush KO. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, like, the first Bonds of Agony I go through just, like, make sure it's not an Arsenal. All 3 Blood Rushes are in there. I'm like, okay, yeah. And then the second time he had been sitting on an Arsenal. I'm like, okay, surely the Blood Rush is an Arsenal. Let me count them. 1, 2, 3. I'm like, oh, man. Like, Jonah's a good guy. Like, we're having a good time.
Yeah.
And I feel a little bad. You know, when you don't draw your best cards, the decks don't feel like they do what they are supposed to do. But that's fab. I mean, these decks, when you don't block well, you don't get to dig through your whole deck to find the good cards. So
well, and not only did he not find his Blood Rushes, that first Bonds of Agony that you threw, he had 3 non-blocks in hand.
Oh my
gosh,
yeah.
There was absolutely no hope of him blocking it. Even, I mean, he could have gotten there with the Reckless Swing if you hadn't buffed it beyond just what it gets for 3 reactions. But we knew that was not going to happen.
And he had the 2 Wild Ride, 1 Pulping, so like he's hoping to discard a Wild Ride off the Reckless, so I can't strip 2 cards. But then he discards the 1 of 3 Pulping, and so I get to take both Wild Rides from him. Yeah.
Just dirty, rotten assassin stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, like, Assassins, Azalea, they do all of this really horrible, disruptive stuff to your opponent. You say you feel bad. I sometimes say I feel bad. Do we, though, Zayne? I mean, like, we're playing these classes for a reason, right?
I do not feel bad about Ice. I do not feel bad about anything that, like, Ranger does. Like, complain about Red and Ledger all you want. You still get an action. Don't complain.
And you get to send the most important action against a CNC, right? So, like...
Yeah. When you get E-Strike for 7 as Azalea, when you Red and Ledger them, it's so sad. It feels terrible. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there's something about the inevitability of new when she plays a Bonds with 3 cards in hand, and you're just like, oh no.
Yeah.
Maybe I just need to build up my callous to my opponents, and
yeah, indeed so.
Maybe it'll come throughout the day. We'll see.
No, I think the world would lose a very special personality if you developed a callous. So please don't ever do that. You're a sweetheart, and even if I'm taking a dominated arrow to the face, I'm still happy when it's coming from you. Let's switch gears a little bit. How is the weekend going for you? How are you enjoying SD so far?
Well, I live here. This is the biggest event we've ever had. Thanks, Justin, and everyone on AGE team for making this happen. They did not pay me to say that. We are truly thankful to have a San Diego event So I slept in my own bed. I went to a coffee shop that I go to all the time on the way. Feels good.
Well, we figured it was finally time, considering the amount of carpooling you guys have had to do to make it to the AGE Open Series and Battle Hardened LAs in the past. So it's kind of a long time coming, and we're really happy to be here.
It is. I mean, back in I started playing Fab during Monarch, and I would drive to Riverside, which is like an hour and a half, to play a draft on an evening, and then drive home. And yeah, it's nice to have some LA people come down to us this time.
Well, okay, since you're a local, can we get a food and a bar rec real quick?
Oh man, it depends. I don't know the reservation situation, but there's a restaurant and then speakeasy behind it. The restaurant's called Neighborhood, and then the bar behind it's called Noble Experiment. That place is awesome. It's walking distance from here. It's popular, but not crazy. You can probably get a reservation for tomorrow night. Maybe not tonight. We'll see.
Ooh, so a little exclusive.
Just enough.
I like it.
If you want to go up the hill, the best Thai place in town is called Bon Thai. It's in University Heights.
Ooh.
It's insane. I had it last night.
I might be hitting that up tonight.
Yeah,
Thanks for the rec, man.
of course.
Well, Zayne, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. Congratulations again on round 1. And I'll see you in top 8. How about that?
I hope so.
Cheers, buddy. Well, we're going to take another break before we pair round 2, and then we will be back with more Flesh and Blood and more Battle Hardened San Diego right after this. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.